Welcome and thank you for joining me for another edition of the Paddock Press Report. Always great to have you with us. I'm Timothy Lateau. What an exciting time of summer it is. All these great stakes races every weekend. And this weekend is no different. Got the Travers Stakes and plenty of other great ones from Saratoga, as well as a few other tracks having a blockbuster weekend, some of their biggest stakes on the calendar. And in Saratoga, who better to talk to than Joe Clancy? Uh, One of my great mentors in my career, full disclosure, such a wealth of knowledge in turf riding and history, and also all things Saratoga. He's the writer, editor, publisher, and owner of ST Publishing and the Saratoga Special. Wears a lot of different hats, knows a lot about racing, and knows certainly a lot about Saratoga. I caught up with him to talk about Golden Tempo, his chances in the Travers Stakes coming up this weekend, what a win would mean for him, as well as some of the horses to look out for and some of those other stakes races on the big blockbuster card. It's an honor to be joined by Joe Clancy, writer, editor, owner, publisher of ST Publishing and the Saratoga Special, an award-winning journalist and turf writer. Joe's done some phenomenal work over decades at Saratoga. Joe, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thanks for having me. All these decade talks starts to make me feel old, but here we are.
And being honest, yeah, being honest. What number is this for you, Saratoga
This
Special?
is the 26th year, so we started in 2001, which doesn't seem possible at all. And yeah, so we're 26 years in. And before we came on, we were talking about trying to beg people to read the thing, and now you hear the paper box out front, door opening all day today and closing, people taking a copy, and that part never gets old. I mean, the writing and the stuff we do is obviously it's what we started out doing. But to see people actually picking it up and reading it, that's the best. That's the best feeling, and always will be.
Definitely, yeah. What have the last, 20, 26 years, 25 years, been like then, just kind of as the papers evolved and changed, the race meet itself has changed too. What's it been like kind of seeing all those changes over that time?
Yeah, and it's easy for horse racing to kind of talk about the past all the time, and but everything changes. I'm sure to talk to a football fan who's going to his third stadium or whatever to root for his team, or a baseball team that moves to a new stadium, or the schedule changes, or we got pitch clocks, we got designated hitters, we got everything. So Saratoga, even as traditional as it is, has changed. I mean, it was much shorter. We started out, we published 4 or 5 days a week. The first year we tried to do six. That was very, very challenging and also silly. We didn't sleep. Now we really only do two papers a week. We do daily during sales week, and mostly that's because of the way the racing calendar has changed so much, where the emphasis has been put on the Saturday cards. It makes those two. It made the Friday and Saturday papers we did and Sunday papers we did so much work. That and then also the paper, we were printing 12-page papers in the beginning, and now they're 48. We did 48 today, well, last night for today, and that's the smallest one we've done this year, so that part's just evolved and changed, and again, way more people read it online, and it's and we're here for 8 weeks now. At the beginning it had just tipped over. It wasn't quite six. I think it was 5.5 weeks when we started. Um, and I remember as a kid, it was just August, when coming up here with my dad's horses, the Saratoga was just the month of August. That's it. And now to think, well, we were here for the Belmont in June. The meet started the 4th of July. We're going to make it all the way through till Labor Day. So, everything changes. The platform doesn't so much, and the point of being here doesn't change. I mean, it's great racing no matter what. The history and tradition of all the various horses who've been here, I think that part never gets old.
Yeah, and one change we saw kind of earlier in the meet too, Joe, is that the race dates, kind of cut back from the typical Wednesday to Sunday schedule, at least for the first few weeks of the meet, just because of the early start with the 4th of July Racing Festival. What do you think that did for the meet kind of as a whole?
Yeah, I think they kind of had to. I mean, again, looking at if I get the business decision of they're here in June, they did a couple of years ago. The 4th of July was at Aqueduct, and the Fourth of July weekend for racing should be a big weekend, and obviously at the Aqueduct plant that wasn't really going to happen. So they moved it up here last year, and then made it sort of a one-off, little, not really connected to the meet, and then went back to Aqueduct, and then came back up here again. And I think it just makes I get the decision to kind of just extend the meet a little bit, but and run 4 days a week early. I don't, I think all of racing not struggle is the wrong word, but there's sort of pressure on the horse inventory to fill all the races, especially in the summer. So I think going to that a little bit more abbreviated schedule makes sense. All that said, I think everybody's looking forward to kind of well, it's not new. The new old calendar of going of Belmont Park, carrying its load, and the Fourth of July will be there, and Saratoga starts, in mid to late July, like it has, going back before the construction started there.
Yeah, the calendar might have had a few tweaks for this season, but certainly kind of a similar blueprint from last year as far as the three-year-old division. I've got Golden Tempo won the Derby, then won the Belmont at Saratoga. Now the favorite for the Travers. Similar to last year when we had Sovereignty with those wins. What do you make of the big race on Saturday, Joe?
I love the big field, right? 10 horses show up, and they're not gonna give it to him. But that's fun. That's what it's supposed to be. And I mean, I think if he's obviously proven to be very tough, mile and a quarter, winning the Derby, winning the Belmont, coming back, basically doing the same thing here again. Those other horses, have they improved a little bit behind? And um, can they figure out a way to solve him? Renegade's effort into Jim Dandy would give you confidence if you're trying to. But he hasn't. But he couldn't beat him in the Derby or the Belmont. So as he was that performance again, standing there watching Golden Tempo's performance in the Belmont in person and watching Renegade's performance in the Jim Dandy in person, as opposed to TV. Two really good performances, and if I'm Renegade, I want to try to do the same thing. Like, just you might just follow Golden Tempo and see if you can run him down instead of being the one to get caught at the end. But fascinating race. Napoleon Solo coming in from the Preakness and the Haskell. He looks like he's in really good form. John Velasquez gets on him, which I think is interesting. It's a cool race. It should be fun. There's, after the post position, Tom Law is much more the handicapper than I am, and he's like speed inside. It's going to be interesting to see what all those horses inside do, and then what some of the other guys do who want to be a little farther back. I don't think it's. I think after the Derby, people said Golden Tempo was pace dependent. After the Belmont, I don't think you can say that. So, I think if he can sit there and make us run, he's going to be really tough to handle. If you beat him, you win the race. I think he's certainly the horse to beat based on those two efforts. But again, I think it's really cool that we've got 9 other horses show up for the race. He didn't scare anybody away.
Yeah, the big field is definitely exciting. Last year, there was only that field of five that had Sovereignty. Bracket Buster was second, Magnitude ended up third. What do you kind of make of, a field twice the size? Do you think that that's kind of a show of maybe, just different levels of respect for the two horses at this point in their careers, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably more of just, it's circumstance that there's enough horses out there that think they're okay. I mean, trying to compare 3-year-olds from one year to the next is a little tricky. Sovereignty certainly scared people, or maybe not scared, but he would make you think differently. Golden Tempo didn't here, but I think it's a different year and just different things, different circumstances when you see a horse like the Puma who didn't get a chance to run, so he's going to take his chance. Renegade, I'm sure if his Jim Dandy was subpar, then they wouldn't be here. But it was so good that they're like, all right, let's go, let's take him on again. And the horses coming out of the Haskell, Napoleon Solo, and Baby Vino again. Their effort there was good enough to say, hey, we want to try to step up and take a chance. I mean, at the moment, Golden Tempo's the 3-year-old leader in the clubhouse. These guys are, trying to work their way into the conversation for sure.
Or yeah, as far as some of the storylines, I know that you love, kind of getting out there and embedding yourself with the trainers and the horsemen. Are there any kind of storylines that you think that you and the team will kind of be keeping an eye on for Saturday as far as, what'll make a great story?
I mean, those races are so good. I think there's the winner of the Travers will be a good story. I don't, it doesn't matter who it is. And it could go any of those horses would be a good story in terms of either horses jumping into the picture, horses, an upset of Golden Tempo, say, or one of those, if Golden Tempo, Renegade, Napoleon Solo, one of the big favorites. If some real long shot wins, then it's really fun. Um, and then the other races, I mean, Englishman, it'll be interesting to see, can he do it again as good as he was here? That was another race. I was standing here watching it in person. You're like, holy moly, and um, if he can run back to that, he probably doesn't have to run back to that effort to be really tough. But anything close will put him there. And I think that race for sure it came up with a small field. I think he did scare people away. And then we thought the ballerina. We were going through it last night after finishing today's edition. Sort of, like the ballerina is a war. It's kind of fun to see some of that. We're working on a preview of Usha, who's a New York bred, who was actually foaled probably a mile or two from the track. So it's kind of fun to see, to see her show up in a grade one on Travers Day. So
Definitely.
there's always stories in Saratoga. You just got to sort of go find them, whether it's just an everyday race or some of the major stakes.
Yeah, no one better to find him than you, Joe. And
We're trying.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. What have kind of zooming out, looking at the full scope of the meet? What have been some of your other favorite stories that they've been able to cover?
Sovereignty's Whitney. If ever, it's weird to say a horse of the year had something to prove, but he kind of did off his first two races this year, and man, he did. He jumped back into the fray for sure, and it's kind of cool to see. I remember watching him break his mate or not break his mate, make his debut on Travers Day a couple years ago, and he was fourth, kind of running late, and looked like he had a lot to figure out, but you were just blown away at him physically, and he still looks every bit as good this year. I was on the Fox show for the steeplechase race on the Wednesday before the Whitney, and they were paddock schooling Sovereignty in the race with the steeplechasers, which is probably a cool way to do it because the old veteran steeplechasers, nobody misbehaves right there. And he just walked by us. We were sort of Lafitte and Kai and I were sitting on the set, which is right up against the paddock fence, and there's no identification, but you're like, who's that? You're like, oh, that's Sovereignty. Like he's just an imposing, really cool looking horse. And kind of to see him go on from a 2-year-old up to what he is now has been fun. Deterministic has been really fun to cover. I had a great sit down with Kendrick Carmouche about what it means to ride that horse and what Christophe Clement meant to him in his career. And that was before the 4-star Dave, and then he goes out and wins it. It's so that's all. And I've done. You do plenty of stories where then the horse doesn't win, and it sort of takes some of the flavor or the magic away from it. But then when he delivered on race day, it made it even better for sure.
Definitely, yeah. We have big weekend this weekend. You've got five grade ones, I believe, on Saturday, and then closing weekend as well with the Hopeful Stakes and a few other big grade one and other graded stakes that weekend as well. What are the last kind of couple weekends of the meet like for you and the team?
Yeah, this week's because the Travers edition will probably be the biggest one we do, or at least as big. The Whitney's the biggest one we've done so far that day, so it'll probably be the same size. It's a 72-page paper, which gets to be there's a lot of moving parts with a 72-page newspaper. Once we get beyond that, you get beyond covering Saturday's racing, then the last two editions of last week are just a little calmer. You're checking off things you might not have gotten to, and it literally starts to feel like fall a little more up here, and everybody says it, but it really does. Even this morning it did a little bit. So that part, it just everything calms down for the last 8 to 10 days or so, basically, once you get beyond the Travers, which is it's a little sad, but it's also a nice feeling where you get to appreciate it a little more. Maybe we get to go to the races as opposed to just hustling our tail off trying to find stories all the time.
Definitely, yeah. Almost to the finish line. And
Yeah, right.
so, yeah, really appreciate your time. Appreciate all that you do for me, for the sport, for turf riders. Yeah, so much respect for you and just all the work that you do. Yeah, so much thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks so much to Joe for his time. A lot of great insight there. And of course, every weekend is a big one in Saratoga. They have a grade one race virtually every weekend. This past weekend was the Alabama Stakes, a mile and a quarter test as well for 3-year-old fillies. The big favorite was Counting Stars. She already had back-to-back wins at Saratoga in the Acorn Stakes, followed up with another win in the Coaching Club American Oaks. But third win was not to be in the cards for her at Saratoga this summer in the Alabama. And instead went to My Guns Loaded, a stablemate of Counting Stars' rival, Chad Brown's other runner who won the Kentucky Oaks. Always a winner. So My Guns Loaded uh, ended up being kind of Chad Brown's backup horse that he put in the races. Always a winner, skipped the race. My Guns Loaded pulled away, pulled clear in the stretch, winning a close one though over Measure. The three horses all kind of hooked up there midway through the stretch, counting stars on the inside. Did not go on with it. She ended up running third. Tight finish between the three of them. All of them gave really game efforts there between My Guns Loaded, Measure, and Counting Stars. But ultimately, it was My Guns Loaded who nicked her first Grade One win there, in her first race in stakes company as well. She also had two career wins prior to that, but yeah, My Guns Loaded gets away with the Grade One win in the Alabama. And next up could be either the Beldame or the Spinster for her. And these fillies could all clash again later on in those fall races, especially in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. So an exciting division for sure to keep an eye on. Well, heading to the West Coast, the biggest race of the summer for Del Mar, the Pacific Classic, a Grade $1 million race. Man, this featured a great lineup of a lot of different stakes winners. Kind of a big question mark going in here was how Knightsbridge would handle his first test at a mile and a quarter. Passed it with flying colors, won by open lengths in the stretch. There was an impressive kick by Original Sin, who came from last, to nab second in that. And then Full Serrano, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner from a few years back, ended up running third. Put in a good effort for the mile and a quarter distance, obviously, like Del Mar, where he won that Breeders' Cup race back in 2024. The Del Mar Oaks, also the other Grade One on the card, this past Saturday at Del Mar. You had a number of horses shipping over to the West Coast, including Tam Tam, who ended up winning the race for trainer Phil Bauer and Rigney Stables. And Tam Tam has had a couple of stakes wins in a row now. Most recently, won a stake in Kentucky and continues to roll, picking up her first Grade One win. Second was Looking at Diamond in Kensington Lane, who just came off of that big effort in Saratoga, a 23-1 upset in that stake. Kensington Lane went off as the favorite, did not win in the Del Mar Oaks, though. She was third. Over to Europe, where they had a Grade One race on a weekday, not this past Wednesday, but the one before that. Mentioned a preview about it, but wanted to give you the recap here. Uh, big matchup between some of the top Grade One horses, 3-year-olds and older horses. You had Item in there, undefeated apart from his loss in the Epsom Derby. You also had Ombudsman, one of the top-rated horses in the world. And also Constitution River, a lot of success for him over in France. He's a 3-year-old for trainer Aidan O'Brien. Those are the big three going into the race. And certainly Ombudsman was the deserving favorite. Be kind of disappointed, I'm not going to lie. Ombudsman finished fourth only. The winner of the race, Item. It seemed like an unlikely winner, even just, a few meters from the finish line. He closed quickly and barely beat Almacom on the line. Constitution River ended up being third. He kicked on early, but didn't have enough of a sustained run to close. And then Ombudsman had running room, but he also just didn't go on with it and ended up fourth in the international stakes. That race is a winning errand for the Breeders' Cup Classic on dirt. Both races are a mile and a quarter. We'll see what Item ends up doing there. Obviously, there's the Irish Champion Stakes, the British Champion Stakes, the Arctic Triumph if he wants to stretch out to a mile and a half. Those are all major Grade One options in play for him and those other horses. So we'll see where they go from here. Obviously, stretching out to a mile and a half is certainly another test, another quarter mile that they have to go. So it's not always the option for the going to the Arc, but the other two champion stakes certainly are options in September and October. Well, some of the headlines stateside. Marshall Graham has been a big name. He's a economics professor in Tennessee, but he's a racehorse owner with 10 Strike Racing. And obviously, there was that news last week about the investigation into him and how he got his hands on some past performances of horses containing vet information that were not his. He had distributed them on social media, or at least the copies that he had got out on social media. This was back in June, actually. Some horses running at Saratoga, like Deterministic, the Grade One horse. And so Marshall Graham was discovered that he was sort of the leak to these past performances with this extra veterinary information. And turns out he also is on the Jockey Club board, is on a board, working with HISA as well. And so they were in a meeting even where they were discussing the leak of these past performances, not knowing who would leak them. The only one in the room that knew that was HISA CEO Lisa Lazarus. She knew that Graham had leaked them. Graham did not confess to leaking them. During that meeting, though, when they were kind of deciding how they're going to respond to this leak and how to proceed. Obviously, after the meeting, then Lazarus confronted Graham about this, and since then, a lot has gone down. Graham has now voluntarily agreed to suspend his ownership of horses as this investigation continues. HISA is looking at the best ways to discipline him after this. One of those options includes going as far as a lifetime ban of owning racehorses. So we'll see what happens there. But a lot's still playing out with that case. Graham has said that he did not hack the system. He didn't get his hands on the information in any sort of illegal way. This was all something that he was able to do just having a portal as a racehorse owner, and he was able to see other horses information that he didn't own. He said he didn't have to hack anything. The system just allowed him to do that. So that is his statement regarding that. He says he is cooperating with the investigation, and we'll certainly keep you updated as the situation continues to evolve. I'm sure there'll be many more headlines about this as this case continues to play out. Kind of unlike anything else that we've seen, but we know that yeah, it's just another headline and another kind of way that information can get out there to the public. That's sort of unforeseen, certainly before HISA took effect just about 4 years ago now. Over to the Midwest, Hawthorne and Cicero and Stickney. Obviously, there's been a headline we've been following with different horsemen like Wayne Catalano, Chris Block as well. Uh, the eviction has been set for August 31st for the backstretch workers. Hawthorne tried bumping that up to August 28th and even asked if the U.S. Marshals would get involved in aiding with those evictions. U.S. Marshals will not be involved. The big concern for Hawthorne is that if the backstretch is not cleared by that date, the sale could fall through. The new owner of Hawthorne could back out. That's Alicam 2023 is the group's name. They could back out of the sale if the backstretch is not evicted of both humans and horses by then. So the we've talked obviously with the Illinois Thoroughbred Horsemen Association. They've been working with different groups to try to uh, ensure that backstretch employees either are able to continue to move on with their trainers to other tracks or can find other housing in the Chicago area and find jobs as well. It's been a major concern, and it has impacted hundreds of workers and children too on the backstretch. So many families on the backstretch, but it sounds like they will be able to meet that August 31st deadline. There were only a handful of employees who did not have sort of their next steps finalized, according to a recent statement from the ITHA attorneys. Couple of retirements to note. To Pan Street, he's a 4-year-old now. He's probably most known for being the 2025 Florida Derby winner, in which he beat Sovereignty narrowly in a close finish, beat him by about a neck. Sovereignty went on to win the Derby in Belmont Travers, obviously, in his Horse of the Year season last year in 2025. To Pan Street, suffered a injury, missed the Derby. It was a condylar fracture, actually. Missed the Derby, missed months of racing. Came back, won an allowance race, but then was last in both the Pegasus World Cup. He was 12th, and he was 7th, last again in the Sheba Stakes back in May. Brad Cox is his trainer. He'd been in training, apparently hadn't suffered any injury, but just wasn't returning to the same form that he had. So he's been retired, as well as Antiquarian. He's also been retired. Jockey Club Gold Cup winner, Antiquarian, best known for that win. Antiquarian, according to Todd Pletcher and his owners, has a minor suspensory injury to one of his ankles. He'll also be retired to stud for 2027. Looking ahead to some of the racing this weekend, Looking at Saratoga, as we were talking with Joe Clancy, lots of big races. The Forgo, a big sprint race featuring Bookham Dano. He'll be the heavy favorite, I'm sure. And Bookham Dano, of course, loves Saratoga. We'll face some tough competition from Senior Officer and Tip Top Thomas for the second and third choices in that race. And the Ballerina is the sprint for fillies and mares, and Ways and Means is the favorite in this race, and she will clash with Eklaton. Eklaton already beat her earlier this year in the Derby City Distaff Sprint at Churchill Downs. Eklaton is not the favorite. The Ways and Means is going to go off as the favorite, or is the morning line favorite, I should say. Ways and Means won the Bed of Roses earlier this year at Saratoga. That's probably why she is the favorite. And there's also Our Disaster, another horse to look out for. She's the third choice. In the HL and Jerkin Stakes, another grade one there. That's the sprint for 3-year-olds, restricted to 3-year-olds. Englishman, super impressive earlier in the year when he just blew the competition away in the Woody Stevens. He is surely going to be the heavy favorite in this one. Small field, only 5 other horses going up against him. The other choices in there, Deep Flame and Local Knowledge, are the second and third choices in the Ellen Jerkins. Personal Ensign, the mile and an eighth race, grade one for older fillies and mares. You've got Fully Subscribed and Scottish Lassie clashing once again. They last out dueled at Saratoga, and Fully Subscribed to beat Scottish Lassie by half a length. Also, Narazuri is a tough one to look out for Mark Casse as well. And over to Kentucky Downs opening weekend there. It's a small sort of boutique meet, but everyone knows they've got the highest purse to race ratio in the whole country, uh, surely because of the casino dollars that they get there, and having not so many race days, but really focusing on the class of these races. They have a lot of really phenomenal races from maiden races, allowance races, and of course a packed stake schedule. Obviously, the purses frequently outweigh the graded status of the races, but big grade one this weekend there at Kentucky Downs is the ladies turf sprint. Ag Bullet will be the favorite, and Ag Bullet has certainly proved herself on the Kentucky Downs course, which is sort of a European style track. A lot of people say, sort of rolling, undulating hills, all turf as well. Obviously, they've got only the turf course there, and Ag Bullet will be the favorite, I'm sure, in that race. Uh, Really fantastic female sprinter, and then also a horse coming over from Europe. Her name is Saida Darian. She'll be the second choice. Obviously, that European style course will probably suit her running style as well. She's going off as the morning line favorite here. And then in our time, a sprinter for Saffie Joseph is the third choice. Over to Charlestown, also the biggest weekend of the year for Charlestown. They've got the Charlestown Classic. Skippy Longstocking, he won the race previously. He'll try to do it again. Last year, though, he was last in a sort of uncharacteristic performance for him. You know that he likes the track, can win on the track. That's an important thing, but so can a couple of his competitors. Barbadian Runner. Last year, he won the Hilton Memorial, the race for 3-year-olds. Now he's, of course, going up against older horses in this mile and an eighth race. And also Banishing, who won the Charlestown Classic last year. He's only the third choice in the race, just because of how tough Skippy Longstocking and Barbadian Runner are. So those are the top three: Skippy Longstocking, Barbadian Runner, and Banishing in the Charlestown Classic. And then over to Fairmount Park in southwestern Illinois, just outside of St. Louis. It's the St. Louis Derby, $250,000 purse. Sort of a smaller derby where some of the horses running in more of the state level derbies, those horses will be clashing. You've got Blackout Time for Kenny McPeak. He's had an up and down year. He won an allowance, but he has not fared as well in the stakes competition. The Hell We Did also has an allowance win, a couple of runner-up efforts in some stakes there as well, like the Sunland Derby, and also the Lexington as well for the Hell We Did. He was seventh in the Preakness, but he, has certainly showed up when he has run in stakes races. I believe last out he was second in the Iowa Derby. And then Hedge Ratio as well for Wesley Ward. He's ran in a couple of stakes races, hasn't won, but he's sort of a up and coming untested horse. Those are the top three: Blackout Time, the Hell We Did, and Hedge Ratio for the St. Louis Derby there at Fairmount Park. So we'll see who wins there. Could be a 3-year-old horse going on to the Pennsylvania Derby, or maybe taking on some open company after that. That's the last race of the year for 3-year-olds, restricted to 3-year-olds around 2 turns. That's a grade one. So certainly things are winding down on the calendar as we head into the fall, head into more of the Breeders' Cup prep period. But yeah, exciting weekend headlined by the Travers Stakes, $1.25 million purse, Golden Tempo, trying to repeat what Sovereignty did last year, winning the big three with the Kentucky Derby, Belmont Stakes, and the Travers Stakes, just skipping the Preakness. So we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for joining once again. This has been the Paddock Press Report. I'm Timothy Lateau. Enjoy the big racing this upcoming weekend.